Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm back, and as you can see, the Let's Play series is over. We have finished in second place, so, we didn't win, and winning is good, and winning feels good, and it's fun, but we'll have to settle for second. So, over the last week, the game ended because Equatorial Gabon, who wasn't first, went inactive. At that point, I decided that I'd choose to resign. I wasn't going to risk fighting him, so, I ended the game. I resigned. That way, we get the gold payout, he doesn't, and it ends the game. So, that's really that. There's not much more to say other than the game's over. Now, I also said to quite a few of you I'd do the next episode with morale map turned off, so I'll honor that. It's not much of a difference, but this way you guys can see what it looks like. But just because the game is over doesn't mean that we're done with it. This has been a big game. It went for 133 days. That is a long time, and in that time we have done a lot. I have done a lot. I have learned a lot. So we need to go back and we need to reflect on what we did well and what we did not do so well, if that makes sense. So really, this is a process that you should do if you lose a game, win a game. It's just something that helps you improve. Reflection, it is an amazing tool. So really what I want to start talking about is what I think I could have done better. If you guys think I could have done something better, post it in the comments and let me know. So, the first thing I feel I could have done better was management of my resources. At the very start of the game, I prioritized food, goods, and manpower, and oil. Now, later on in the game, I went through various situations where I wouldn't have enough of one or enough of the other. Particularly once we lost the Middle East, I lost a lot of my oil. So, diversifying things, making sure that in all regions I have a steady economy, is something that I need to do in games going forwards. When we lost the Middle East, when we were battling Volga, that took a heavy hit on our oil, and because of that, we were no longer able to build army units, and we had to prioritize infantry, because we had the food for it, and not the oil for other units in the game. So that is one thing that in reflection I need to do in the future is, make sure across all of my provinces I have a good resource base. So another thing I could have done a little better was my management of my Air Force. I feel as though I didn't use my Air Force effectively, and could have used it a lot more efficiently, especially when we were fighting up here against Volga as he pushed forwards. Our Air Force was split up. I used air units pretty inefficiently to attack units that were singled out. Through this we took a lot of casualties, and I feel as though if I had stacked units into groups of 5, it would have worked more efficiently. But I was desperate, and we, he took casualties, so did we, and although we won the war in the end, I feel as though it would have been quicker if we had been able to keep more units up. And because we, like I was saying before, we didn't have the oil to rebuild these units, it was not a good situation. We were losing units that we couldn't reproduce, we couldn't replace. And that brings me to my next point. Another thing I feel as though I could have done better was management of cities and infrastructure and repairing buildings as we went. So this is something that I started to do, towards the end of the game, where I started, because I had the resources, just started upgrading buildings and making sure that they're all repaired, all ready to go. But initially, once we pushed forwards, we got all that land. For the majority of the game, I did not repair any of the infrastructure, and I did not repair any of the industrial complexes. And while this was fine, it worked out well, we were able to use the resources to produce more units. Had things gone bad with Equatorial Gabon when we were fighting him, if we would have definitely been pushed out of Africa if the war was to continue, and that would not have gone well at all, because we didn't have the industry and the infrastructure in Europe, in Russia, to continue to produce units and resources at the rate we'd need to, continue the defense. So, that is a big point that I want to emphasize, is that I kept a lot of my industrial complexes and all of my resource production was largely based in Africa. And now, while it does make sense, because that is where my core is, had things not gone so well, it could have been very, very different. Okay, so moving on to the pros, what we did well and what worked. So, we won, so, we clearly did something right, and I think what we did do well was kind of our expansion, talking to the players around us. Like, throughout the whole thing, I had a pretty rough idea what was going on in terms of, who was allied with who and what was happening. Although it got pretty sketchy when we were up against Volga, East Brazil, like the whole of North Africa, the whole of Russia, when it was everyone versus Africa, things were pretty sketchy at that point. But because we kept up communication, we stayed true to our allies, Equatorial Gabon, Upper Volta, we were able to push through. Although Upper Volta went inactive, his land definitely helped me pick up the war effort. But that is something that I think went well, is we always had a good idea of what was happening in terms of the whole game, and this is something that you need to have. So there's not much more I can really say about that part in particular, but I guess the whole point of the story is talk to people in the game even if they're not your allies. Try to convince them to be your allies, try to convince them not to fight you. It's not just about, you can't always win by asking people not to attack you, but sometimes you just, talking to people, kind of being friendly, makes them less likely to attack you, and more likely to, trust you and go with you in the future. That was something that really helped, was when we were under all that pressure, we were able to keep South Mexico out of the fight. And although he did go inactive in the end, keeping him out of the fight definitely had an effect on how things played out. He was a huge contributor, and because he stayed out, he also was able to keep Illinois out, and because of that, all of a sudden, like, the odds were not in our favor, but they were a lot better. So, just talk to people, be social, be friendly, be polite, be political, but always know how to kill anyone you meet. I think that's the saying. Can't remember where I heard that. Anyway, moving on to the next pro. Our defense and our, how we conducted ourselves in battles. So, obviously, we've made it this far. We won. We got second place, rather. But what I want to talk about is how we conducted ourselves in our fight against Volga and North Ural. That's who it was, yeah. So initially we were on the back foot. As many of you will recall, we got pushed all the way out of Europe, all the way back to Spain. And really, what I want to highlight here is how we made the most of a strategic advantage we had. Because Volga and North Ural had pushed so far forwards from their cores, which are up here, they no longer, they were struggling to get troops up to the front lines. Because our core was down here, we made the advantage of this. They sent all of the bulk of their units down to Spain, where the supply lines were short, they couldn't get reinforcements up to the front fast enough, at least not as fast as we could. So, we were amassing units up here, and we held a pretty good line here. They took heaps of casualties, and because of our shorter supply line, we were able to get troops there faster, and this meant that we could outnumber them. And by the time that we were able to win the battles here, most of their troops were too spread out trying to reinforce us that it was just easy to push them the whole way back. Another thing we did well was the use of naval units against land. We never lost Greece. This is Greece, right? Yeah, this is Greece. We never lost Greece. The furthest we came to losing Greece, I'm pretty sure, is they once took this city here. Other than that, we never came close. a total of 50 or 30 to 50 units, enemy units, were killed trying to take this region. And we successfully defended it with only 5 at one point, all because of our use of naval units as artillery. And that is something that had a huge effect on defending this whole region down here. Initially, our naval units played a huge effect up here when it first started, acting as artillery. They couldn't be hit, so they dished out major damage to enemy troops pushing through into our land. It's these small things like that that make a difference. A few battleships here and here doesn't sound like much, but over the course of a day or two, the amount of damage they can do really racks up. Around here as well, when they were trying to send troops down into these forts, most of them, they were getting and taking some serious damage before they even got close due to the ships that we had just down around here. It got to the point where they weren't sending troops in here because they were just getting died, and I was able to send light tanks just up to here, covered by ships, and they just getting away with it. They were just getting fine. I was able to get up to here relatively easy with light tanks covered, one light tank covered by a fleet of ships, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. They didn't have the air force, well, rather the air base at the time, to get air units out there to kill it. And by the time I got up here, I have all these new options now and places to go that the defense collapsed in on itself. I managed to get out and around it. So that is another thing we did well. And the last thing we did well was basically everything else. We managed to come second in the game. So yeah, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who supported me along this, gave me advice, gave your feedback. It's all useful. It all helps me reflect and be a better player myself. So in the future, when you lose a game, win a game, I encourage you to reflect, look at what you did well, what you could do better in the future. And so that's it for the Let's Play series. It ends here, I guess. So going out from here, I'm going to start producing a new series of videos focusing purely on tactics. I don't intend to start any new games or new Let's Plays. I just want to focus on tactics of individual units and groups of units for the near future until I find more time to record. So, if you have any suggestions, any advice, any feedback, just let me know. But other than that, thank you for watching.